You're right. We are indeed ready. In game number one, had a crazy little bit of a back and forth at the end, and we're getting it ready for game number two. And Rebel, a lot to be excited for with Bay State currently at match point.
Yeah, setting up game number one, I think we had talked about improvements for both teams, but again, I think it was more decisive decision making coming out from the side of Bay State, kind of improvements for what we saw from a history of them making kind of more aggressive calls than they need to. Really was what made the difference inside of a game like this. And for SLU, finding an additional win condition, I like that at the end there. Like Solo talked about how top lane really felt like the only place they were winning consistently on the map prior to like later in the game when Strompest started to be able to pick off kills in team fights. Finding another option for yourself, either by setting Doxa up for some additional assistance, or even setting up Strompest now with this red side counter pick to actually accomplish a lot more in the laning phase, could help out, could help bridge that. If you want to stay with this late game strategy, help bridge that from the early game to the late game with something more comfortable in the lane.
I'm 100% down for them to opt for one of these strengths, right? Like, one of the things I had a complaint with that you and me were talking about during break was the Vladimir never got set up for success, right? You put a little bit of resources in there. Volibear came up there a couple times, and the Vladimir didn't really get to have its moment. It was, as you said, Strompest popping off later on inside of the game. So see if we can get something with a little bit more impact for Cozy, or some tools that are built up for Cozy to be able to pop off, or for Doxa to be a bit more comfortable. I would love to see that as well, so he doesn't get his champion pool pinched so tremendously.
You can use counter picks, in my opinion, on the red side a lot more valuably for SLU than what Bay State had actually had a chance to, right? In my opinion, with Bay State, you're either using it for DMK to set up a really cool like jungle versus jungle matchup, or you're using it for Seranok to set up something like Xerath, Vel'Koz, Zoe, something that like he's really comfortable on when it comes to these siege mages that he's known for. Not as much of an option now on the blue side. For St. Louis, though, again, when you've got Cozy to potentially counterpick in a skill matchup up against Bejjj, who again was something that was pointed out as being pretty good. But also for Strompest, I think it means a lot. As you can see, also, we're calling things out here, as it is the Akali, the Olaf, and the Lilia taken off. Bay State may actually go for the Volibear themselves here for the B1 pick.
It was also, they left Lucian up. They got rid of Lucian as a ban for the Lilia. That's actually very surprising, and that means they want the Lucian for themselves.
Yeah, I was poking a little bit of fun because I know for a fact that they're not going to play the Volibear. It's DMK, man. He's not gonna relegate himself to just like ganking and frontline duty. He wants to carry with something, and so here you have a bit of flexibility, but more likely than not, it's actually going to be Sophist or Bejjj taking this pick specifically, which is of the highest interest. Not to mention it's taking away from Doxa, who plays it as both a mid laner and of course as a bot laner now, where he is at. But Strompest has also said that this is his favorite champion to play outright. Like, this is his, but like if he could play one champion for the rest of his league career, it would be Lucian. So not only really good takeaway from Bay State, but the fact that it's got the power of flexing to two lanes potentially here is also a pretty big thing.
Very valuable pick. SLU grabbed themselves Ahri. Worked out very well for Strompest later on in the matchup, as you were talking. And see if they grab that Volibear as well. Seems like that is the case for Matty.
Sticking with a similar composition to last time, the Strompest Ahri obviously had a very, very positive effect. It did really well into Seranok, and Matty's early impact, again, 100% kill participation, meant that he was just kind of everywhere at once, making a lot of sense up against whatever it is that Dragonminkim is going to bring out here once again. You're not likely to find something that DMK is going to play that's going to have a whole lot more early influence. I do wonder if they go back to Nocturne, because that is supposed to be a pick that works incredibly well into the Volibear and has that kind of map influence they're looking for. Worked out great last game. Not shocking at all to see it come back in game number 2.
Gigabrain on your behalf. I'm curious, do they lock in their support matchup though? Do they show where the solution's going, or do they keep it hidden in mystery by grabbing one of their solo laners?
It's interesting, because again, you have a lot of flexibility right now. Support would keep it completely hidden. This is much more intriguing, because obviously it's not going mid lane, right? Like, the Lucian won't go to Seranok almost certainly in this particular case. I'm upset that the Xerath doesn't get locked in, but obviously it's an Ahri. You don't really like that matchup at all. So instead, you go back to the Vex versus Ahri, which worked out last game. Specifically in fights, Seranok had some really amazing flanking angles. Seranok has stepped up immensely for this Bay State roster. When they first started building it, Seranok was kind of the rock that the entire team was built upon for a very good reason, being the most consistent contributor again and again and again, and now has stepped into a role of being like a top 5 mid laner minimum inside of collegiate altogether. Strompest is another one of these incredibly talented guys, so the one-on-one matchup is already intriguing, but inside of those fights specifically, you could see the impact that Strompest was able to make and the impact that Seranok was able to make on the Vex as well.
and they grab themselves Jhin. A little bit of comfort for SLU locked in the bot side. Something that I was talking about that I was alluding to that I personally wanted to see. Don't want to see getting pinched down as they did. Now it does give SLU an option. They could lock in their support in their next round after they finish up these bans, and they get as you were talking about at the beginning of the draft, Rebel, counter pick for Cozy.
Man, I love this. They ban out the Amumu, knowing that the Amumu for Swordblue is something that you could potentially end up seeing. It's a little bit of scouting on their part. I saw it in a couple of scrims from Bay State that it kept me very interested.
Yeah. They played it last week.
Yeah, they did play it last week as well, with the misfortune, of course, which would indicate that, of course, it's a top lane Lucian. And I think with the Gnar ban, they're actually showing that it's less likely to be Lucian top and far more likely that Sophist is going to be taking it into the bottom lane. So especially if they're comfortable with the Jhin matchup, I feel as though that's something that Sophist would call and just be like, okay, Dox is on the Jhin, I can punish this with the Lucian. We're just going to pick for something there, which is why it's intriguing that 2 top laners were banned out here, but there's no Nami takeaway. It could just be a Nami with a Lucian this late into the draft that has not been removed from SLU if they're not careful with what their support is here. You don't want something like, I don't think you want Nautilus. I think you could just slam Nami right here if you're Swordblue and really play to the bottom side.
I was about to say, like, not the Lucian's right there, buddy. Like, it is staring them right in the face. And like you said, the Nautilus can be a little bit rougher. Nami locked in without hesitation. They've done this multiple times. So now it's the blind pick for Bay State in the top side of the matchup.
I'll have to figure out what works for them mostly. Camille is the one that I always come back to as being like one of Bejjj's better champions, but also being able to kind of take it into blind matchups no matter the circumstance. Aatrox also something that he's played in the past. I don't like it as much as his Camille. I think his Camille is better, but they must feel that Aatrox is a little bit more blindable at this point because they have Cozy on the other side who's willing to take a red side pick and a counter pick as well and just slam it into anything that he's got. The Urgot would be a very intriguing selection. Okay, now we're just getting trolled by our producer.
Yeah,
so
I was about to say, we're just getting trolled at this point, right? We're just getting trolled, right? I'm seeing all the champions. Sure, Cozy, we get it. You don't play just a Kali anymore. You're going to the Camille. Okay, there we are.
Okay, so testing the Aatrox with just the Camille, good single target damage. It's a matchup we saw quite a bit a couple of years ago. These were 2 really popular top lane champions, but it's been a while since either one of them have really slotted against one another. I don't remember the last time I saw Camille specifically against Aatrox. And if I recall, the Camille can be meant to snowball against the Aatrox. It's a skill matchup, but Aatrox will struggle sometimes in the pure one-on-one at the beginning of the game, especially if you don't hit your zones, but Camille can get squishy. Camille can get ripped through, so it is more a skill matchup than anything else between the two of them. And if last game was any indication, if you put a little bit of attention up there, Cozy could snowball this a lot better with attention from Matty, and I think that's the intention here, is they want something that he will have a team fighting presence with, but also is able to take over the lane with right resources.
Yeah, I mean, Matty had 100% KP, right? Like, this is somebody who was very much so proactive on the map, and one of the things I wanted to see was something that more resources could be put onto Cozy, that he could have a little bit more of his own impact. And when you have a champion like Camille that provides her own CC, is able to have easy access to being able to do the damage, has early item breakpoints, I really like this move from SLU. It feels a lot better on their top side of the matchup, especially just looking at game 1 and looking at how they were moving members around the map. And it does make me feel a little scared for the side of Bay State now, because Matty did make those early visits topside, and it's even easier to gank for a Camille than it is the Vladimir.
Now, you do still have this mid-jungle roaming duo from Bay State that they can attack their side lanes with. The thing that I wanted from the Camille was safety, because again, that hook shot, if you've got it on Bejjj, it means that he can get out of dodge if necessary and kind of stall for time to allow for Dragonminkim to show up, Seranok to show up in the right circumstances. The Aatrox doesn't have that as much, instead just opts to be more of a team fighting tool and one you can try to neutralize a lane with, just to make sure that's going to be the case, because attention should be going to bottom side. Sophist, Sage, and Swordblue, if they can't generate their own advantage against this bottom lane, which is already very likely given what we saw in the previous game. But if they can even, even if you need to put attention there, it feels like you could be playing very heavily towards this Lucian Nami combination, attacking SLU's bottom lane as much as possible, and then it becomes a testament to how can SLU affect the other side of the map. Because I don't think it's valuable to you to defend your Jhin and Nautilus in this case. You are leaving them mostly on an island. It's just about getting Cozy and Strompest head. They were able to do it last game. Matty found the ability, I think at the beginning of the game, they had like 2 kills between both their top and their mid laner with no deaths on either of them, which is precisely the position they need to replicate in this game as well.
You need to replicate it, get everything assorted. This is where top 8 is. This is where you punch in your ticket. SLU do not want to get sent home on a 2-0 against Bay State. They're looking to go ahead and see if they can punch them, get that ticket, and see if they can make some moves here inside of game number 2. they've got a lot on the line. It's going to be up to them. I'm still a bit worried on some of the things, though. Like the Lucian Nami, man. I keep looking back. I'm like, all right, they're punching the ticket. And I'm like, wow, punching. What? You know what else hurts really bad? Nami Lucian in every instance of the game. So I feel like SLU definitely have to keep an eye on how they play this out. And they can't let things get out of control for themselves, especially in the spotlight.
It's a position where, like, if you're going to be giving a bunch of resource towards elsewhere on the map, they have to take over. I know you and I talked about this really heavily. When you've got Cozy, he's able to take over games. Specifically, though, after last game, Strompest needs to step up, right? Strompest had 6 kills. They were relying on him to try to take some of the late game effects. He is this amazing team fighter, and it feels like this game, while yes, you've got some ability of Doxa to put some carry in, Cozy to put some carry in on this Jhin and Camille, I am mostly paying attention to the solo AP threat in the mid lane. Strompest, this most veteran member on this team, to put in that significant work to win out these late game fights, to win these skirmishes for this team the way he had in the previous game. That, to me, is what dictates so much of St. Louis's success. And I think putting more chips into the Strompest basket, definitely something I favor after watching game number 1.
I agree with you, man. Looking how the game will unfold. You see them dancing around the ward. Interesting tech coming out from them. As they will have... Okay, there we go. They're playing with their food a little bit there.
So I think they were trying to figure out whether or not Strompest would be allowed to walk over and get the auto attack and give him the solo experience, or give him the experience for the ward, which might have been enough to actually get him into level 2 territory on just the first wave instead of waiting for an additional minion, which is huge for somebody like Strompest, who again can operate on these margins pretty well. But it looks like Seranok kind of anticipated that and was poking away at him not to allow him re-entrance to the lane without some assistance potentially. And so Seranok, again, doing very, very well for himself, preventing Strompest from being able to get that experience, denying that. Instead, goes on to Cozy, who's going to be able to use it on the Camille, probably not as effectively in the pure one-on-one, I suppose, as to what Seranok and Strompest might have the effect with.
Well, you said it best inside of game number 1. Strompest is somebody, if you put resources into, he feels more than confident to be able to give a return in regards to resources netted into him. You see Seranok trying to bully Strompest off the wave. That is not a good trade for him. We'll go ahead and pop into some of those corruption potions.
Yeah, going to be an immediate pop here into the level 2 area for Seranok, who already, again, has been trading quite aggressively into Strompest to make sure that he pays respects on this Ahri pick. After last game, especially, I think Seranok, the laning phase didn't go particularly poorly, right? But, like, that doesn't mean that Strompest wasn't any more of a menace. And so Seranok, I think, really wants to clamp down on making sure the impact from the Ahri is not felt nearly as much as what happened in the previous game. Starting that off by just playing very aggressively on the front foot with these first couple of waves. Looks like he's actually setting up for a crash of 3rd wave. I can't tell because it looks like the scoreboard is a little bit bugged at the moment.
Yeah.
Apologies for that, folks, but it's not going to matter all that much. It'll come back very, very quickly. But we'll be able to see because it looked like Seranok was maybe posturing for like a 3-wave crash.
Yep, looks like that is the case. Trying to do just that. Strompest doing a good job keeping this wave cleared out as well as those minion dematerializers as well to make sure to shove out this wave as fastly as possible.
Trade back and forth, which is why now you actually look towards the jungle pathing that came through, and despite the fact that we have reverse sides, we kept the same junglers, they're both on bottom side once again. See if that makes an impact, because Matty, again, in the last game, went for that early play, ended up costing the bottom lane a little bit, because it gave over the 2 kills to Sophist, and definitely in a game like this, where you're playing up against the Lucian, against the Jhin and the Nautilus, you certainly do not want to give the option of the Lucian to snowball this lane of his own volition. That is the last thing you'd be looking for. Because he can push that a lot harder than what an Ezreal could in the previous games. Don't want to give away the 2 kills, instead just make sure that he's covered.
You can see, easy secure coming in for Matty in the top side, and he's beelining it straight up here, wanting to get into Aatrox's face, but nice bit of communication. They say, hey, the Volibear hasn't been seen bot side, he must be up there.
Okay. Actually came up to try to, I think, just defend Cozy's ability to hold that wave, because if Bejjj decides to try to push forward just to break the hold that Cozy has over top of it on this Camille, probably would have led to his death, or at minimum the flash having to be burned. So just covering for that. Now he doesn't have to worry about it. Again, the hook shot means that there's nothing for Cozy to have to worry about. The wave is constantly pushing against Bejjj, and the lane control is already in favor of Cozy. He's stacked in the other direction, already up 6 minions, and he's going to be able to hold that wave in position for a long time. Still has the coverage of his jungler as well. This is a tough position. Bejjj has to find a way to break this. He's got Nocturne topside. He might actually have to pull. Oh, no way.
He just got a huge trade there. That is not what Cozy wanted.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's how you break it right there, is Bejjj jumps ahead of his wave just to make sure that he can push back Cozy, and now the wave is going to collapse underneath the tower. Matty wasn't able to step up fast enough. If DMK is here, he's going to get spotted on the ward, but this was the anticipation. Did he walk through that ward and not see it? It kind of looked like he missed it for some reason, but...
Yeah.
Okay.
Saw it. Didn't know if Volibear was around, I guess, but oh my god. Oh! First
yes! Chad Bejjj, this is what I've been waiting for, man. Like, he came out of amateur, right? They found him on peak performance. He came out of South American League as well. He's similar to Seranok in that regard. They found him at peak performance. Y, I believe, was the team that he was on, and he had good performances. He was so close to making scouting grounds through solo queue last season. So few people actually know about Bejjj, but he does flex very, very often in the top lane matchups. This is a very rare circumstance where he found a great trade into Cozy and punished it because of that hold that was attempted to be made right there.
Flash forced out by Seranok in the mid lane. Attempted gank from Matty based off of the aggression of Seranok. Does mean Strompest does not have that Spirit Rush. No more dashes available. But, man, look at Bejjj. Bejjj is just taking the fight too cozy here.
Yeah, he's down a little bit of CS, but he simply does not care. He's got the Iron Spike Whip as well to be able to repair. Cozy was trying to get greedy. He had Matty around. He tried to hold that wave to punish, and it would have been massive if he would have been able to hold it there, because, again, it would have been so hard to break without the assistance of Nocturne. And with Matty around, they might have been able to actually completely deny their access from that crashing. So Bejjj dug himself out of a pretty significant hole with that wave control that was held. So props to him for being able to do that once again, because that was really incredible. As taking a look across the map, also just back and forth a couple of times. First off, Nocturne did get an assist. I think he tagged a Q onto Cozy before that play had come through on top side. So very little effort for DMK to grab an assist there. But otherwise, the CS and the lanes are relatively similar to one another. There's no distinct advantage that's being held except for that first blood goal onto the top laner here for Bay State.
Control ward still remains over inside the tri-bush, so they do know there's a little bit of safety in that regard, but we're about to start to see these junglers hit 6, and that's when big part of the impact can come across. St. Louis, one thing that has changed from the last game, indeed, Matty hasn't been able to find any early angles inside of the game to be able to get one of his solo laners going.
It's not, and there's a number of reasons for this. I think Seranok against Strompest in the last game also had quite a bit of wave control, even through the DMATs that had come through from Strompest. But with this bot side pushing power that you've got with the Lucian and Nami, the amount of kill threat that you have against these two, I think it's really difficult to find anything on bottom side. And top side, again, was where you wanted to punish, but having pathed from top to bot meant that he was away from that lane for a long time. And again, trying to fix that wave was a bit of a problem as well, as he gets caught out on the blue buff punish.
He has to ult to get away. Like, that is so rough for Matty. Matty's not able to find any of the resources. He's trying to get aggressive. He's trying to find moments to be able to bury himself into any place that Bay State isn't at, trying to get resources. But right now, Bay State are ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's really incredible because this is a game where we anticipated Matty playing up towards top and mid lane, but more so top side to try to set up Cozy, who had this counter pick of the Camille. You anticipate that there's going to be an amount of pressure that's being put onto Bejjj, and again, that wave being held was supposed to be a good amount of the punishment, but ever since then, Bejjj finding the solo kill, being able to push Matty out of the jungle, he is performing well above what I think that SLU was ready for. Now, Rift Herald, the fight is here. There's 3 members on both sides.
Hook shot onto Bejjj. The World Ender was used as well. Headstick ultimatum goes down, and Bejjj follows shortly after. Strompest got the reset, has a couple dashes in favor, but Dragonminkim, he steals away Herald, but cannot grab it. That is 2 kills for SLU.
Just an over-adjustment there. The wave had gone back out after top wave, and then Bejjj kind of just roamed down into the jungle to help take it. But again, there was a faster shift from the side of SLU, both out of their mid lane and also out of their bot lane, which was showing up very, very quickly. Not to mention, a good amount had been burnt at the beginning. I think it was half health for a couple of members here on Bay State as well when they stepped into that pit area. And so because of that, they walk away. No Rift Herald, but a couple of kills in tow. 1 for Strompest and 1 for Cozy in the top lane. Extremely helpful for setting up these solo lane success. First real attack we've seen from SLU that has led to pretty much anything in a game like this when you expect this much attention. And you see right here, I think battle lines are being drawn, and maybe DMK and Seranok felt that they had the ability. That Shadow Surge just barely didn't touch Strompest, and he missed him with a Q as well. Very rare instant of Seranok hitting some abilities, because I think if you get the reset onto Strompest at minimum, you can prevent this fight from going any further. You probably could steal away the Rift Herald. You might not get it, but at least you take the 1-for-1. But again, unfortunately, those abilities missing did cost a little bit. Not to put it all onto Seranok, because that fight, again, was just off the back of them, I think, overstating how much power they had in the early game against the Volibear.
Yeah, the Volibear, I mean, the Camille had the Sheen item as well, completed as well, so that Sheen able to lay a good amount of damage inside the fight. The head stack on made him a lot of focus, a lot of single target damage that you have to account for inside of it, and that was a grim reminder for Bay State, as St. Louis have taken a little bit of a gold lead for themselves. Didn't get any of the neutral objectives that they may have wanted, but still nice for SLU as they're looking to try and get their advantages. Teesum's done a lot of roaming to this mid lane. He has been sitting a lot of time inside this bush.
And what's incredible is the fact that, like, Teesum has been out and about a little bit on the map as the Nautilus. You don't want to stand against the Nami and the Lucian in the bot lane. But the fact that there's been no advantage really gained, Doxa has been able to stay exactly even in CS is precisely what you want from St. Louis. The whole reason of taking the Jhin is to make sure that you don't have to fall behind in farm. Clearly, Doxa looking a lot more comfortable, I think, in the pure laning phase. Last time he was down 20 or so CS. I know he was down 2 kills, but it's another thing to miss out some of the CS to start off the lane. Here, exactly even. Haven't been able to push any of the advantage that they've
Swordblue caught out of position, but that's the paranoia. TP coming in from the wave. It's Sage is there to punish. Matty drops 2 kills to Sophist. Sage.
As we talk about it, perhaps a caster curse, if you will. We're talking about how the bottom lane doesn't get taken advantage of. You know, the Lucian and Nami really haven't been all that active, and Dox is doing a great job denying a lot of the pressure that got put on completely. But here, a play to the bottom side that was instigated by SLU gets counteracted by DMK, once again being in the right position, and by the Lucian Nami being able to use some of this early power. Now, Sophist Sage, who's going towards the lethality. Lucian looks like the Eclipse that's going to be built here is something as cozy. Bejjj fancies himself a fight.
Bejjj says you miss your hook shot, you're going to regret it. Doesn't get him with the tether. It is a flash blown for the Camille.
And both of them burn their flashes. Bejjj unfortunately burnt it, I think, a little bit faster than he wanted to. Q's gonna be the DMK's here to ruin the fun.
Yeah, head second momentum comes in, hook shot.
He blocked it!
He gets the kill, a trade of 1-for-1.
I thought DMK actually clowned Cozy right there. I thought the blocked hook shot was going to be enough for him to not get the auto attack off, but unfortunately I think Bejjj thought his auto would come through too. I want to make sure that's the case as the back and forth was there. I'm paying attention to it. Keep your eye on the last auto attack, because right here's the block. He turned! If he doesn't turn, he's fine! No, Bejjj! Oh, it's so upsetting to watch in real time a second time in a row. What a play from Copy, being able to, again, you had the wave hold that cost him a kill and kind of like got the Aatrox back into a control of the laning phase, but since that fight around the Rift Herald has actually looked a lot more comfortable, similar to last game where the Gangplank started off on a rough foot, but instead, after a little bit of the laning phase, it progressed itself, turned into an advantageous position for the team that had it.
Stretch line, it does connect, they're looking to punish Swordblue yet again, and it will be the kill, but the Cullen coming in, doing good amount of damage. But the rest of St. Louis gets out of range, they get out of dodge, and they survive and take the dragon for themselves.
Clap's not there in time. There's the bot lane coming in from Bay State and the turn-off immediately from Teesum to be able to punish them in that regard, using the Nautilus hook to just find the Nami as quick as possible. To the point where, like, only the ultimate of the Lucian was burnt during that expenditure. As Bay State, again, they're falling victim to some of SLU's grouping at the beginning of the game. Them being able to put 3, 4, 5 members together. Bay State's having a little bit of struggle being able to find a way to breach when they've got that many members together. So SLU being able to take themselves off to a pretty early advantage. They also get their first dragon of the series, so golf clap for SLU being able to find their first one here. Very, very nicely played. And of course, the game in a much more even state than what we had in the last time. I think even at this point, Bay State had started to jump off to a little bit of a lead, but this time, just 500 gold difference between the two teams. Likely denied a little bit more here because we can grab some turret plates as Sophist Sage and Swordblue.
Back to back, going for those picks onto Swordblue has been a bit of a story in this bot lane. Putting the target on this squishy enchanter. SLU plates are falling. Not going to be able to press any more advantages in the mid lane for Strompest here, so he's shoving out this wave. As they're all back into their laning phases. But Volibear up here top lane.
Yep. Got to make an impact, trying to make sure that Bejjj is going to be punished, and it's exactly what's going to happen. Cozy's going to find it potentially. Nice slow.
Nice. Dodges out on the tether as well. Bejjj is dead to right as he will drop, and Matty gets himself a kill.
Didn't happen at the beginning of the game nearly as much as I think we would have expected to be able to cover for Cozy, to be able to set up Cozy properly. But here we are. As the game progresses, Matty continues to lean more and more into this Camille to be in the winning position inside of this one-on-one matchup up against Bejjj, up against this Aatrox. And it's turning out well. Again, the Cinder is fun, completed. The Rift Herald has now been taken over, I would say, by St. Louis. Obviously, they didn't get the first one, but they're going to get the second one for relatively free. And so again, Bay State haven't been able to full push the advantage of what I believe the Lucian and Nami should be able to do at the beginning of the game. 10 CS and a couple of turret plays really isn't all that much. 2 kills should help with that a little bit, but still haven't been able to push this nearly as much as they should. I'm hoping to see DMK make an impact towards bottom lane. You can see actually he and Seranok are hovering around that area, understanding that Matty with this Rift Herald will likely just commit to the top tower play.
That's exactly what it does equal up to. Bejjj is like, all right, fine, I take wolves. Okay, sheesh, guys, I get it. As he is forced out of his lane, he's scared a bit, poking around in the tri-brush. He is going to force Cozy away from the tower. Doesn't secure it yet, but the damage has been done. Tower not long for the world on the top side of the map. No towers have fallen quite yet, though.
And it's a position where, like, Bejjj, like, is basically latched to the hip to his top tower if he doesn't want to lose it, because it only takes probably one rotation of, like, auto, Q, auto, and then, like, secondary Q coming through from just Cozy to be able to snag that one away. So it's a question of how long they're willing to sit on the defense of this top tower versus moving their Aatrox out and about to try to get him into team fights as much as possible. And whether they're able to lean into bottom side. Rift Herald being available for Matty means they could try to get structural damage done to mid lane to take the next dragon that's going to be up in a minute and a half here. So that's a thought process, or trying to crack the bottom tower if they want to go diving for some reason down there. The biggest thing is that they don't really have to mount this massive defense. There's not a big offense that has come out, again, from this mid to jungle expectation that we had at Bay State, where these two semi-globals being able to cross the map and play into Sophist Sage, play into somebody on the map, just has not come about really all that much. It's mostly been defense from some of SLU's plays that have been, some of the benefactors that Bay State's been able to, be able to make happen. They're just scaling into this game as well, but SLU has a lot more control than what we saw in game number 1. Very, very different look.
A much better look, indeed, as they're, like you said, control is definitely the word. They feel like they're the ones that are in charge of the pace. They're the ones that are saying, hey, this is the game, this is what we're going to be playing today, and they're looking to continue to keep that. Bay State wants to wrestle the wheel away from them, but so, looking for that one moment that they're able to press the gas pedal. A root could be the answer here. Depth charge onto Seranok, and gas pedal press. Doxa finds himself a kill in the mid lane.
Nicely baited by Doxa. He just throws himself at the Seranok is sitting across from him with the Vex, gets him up with the root, and I don't think Seranok was anticipating anything, but it was Teesum, and of course Matty who's dancing in the brush, able to capitalize on that one big pick, which opens up for Dragon, opens up for Rift Herald potential here, as well as it looks like Bejjj actually had left out of the defense of the top lane to go down and help support the Dragon play that's going to be happening in a couple of seconds here, and because of that they lose their top tower. It's the first structure taken in the game in the pockets of the Camille.
And that is one of many, hopefully, for the side of SLU on the top side of the map. They want this Camille to be that threat. The Dragon started up by Bay State. Teleport is available for this Camille, but we do see the teleport in kind from Seranok. Herald summoned in the mid lane. Bay State is going to have to make an immediate response to this mid lane tower. Ultimate going wide, not catching anybody. And this is going to be just so much damage done to the structures of Bay State.
Yeah, you do lose over half, about 3/4 of the health on the mid tower, which isn't that impactful. But again, the fact that like you've got Cozy in a position to be able to take top inner tower, which is a lot of gold in its own right, and in a favorable position in the side wave up against this Aatrox, up against Bejjj, you're feeling great about the prospect of being able to further this side lane advantage that you've got. And beyond that, also, like you're able to play in a 1-3-1 because of the safety of both the Camille and the Ahri, which means that Strompest is just perma pushing. Strompest is pulling resource, and so far, again, the biggest thing. Bay State has not used to try to punish anything like this, right? Like Camille has been punished in the side lane one time by a Nocturne ultimate. I don't think we've seen that used aggressively one time in this game. It's the same with Strompest, where again, very difficult to stick onto the Ahri, but there's been no attempt even made by Bay State in this sled. It seems like they're waiting for more neutral objective type things to fight around. They're not trying to play into the side lanes, but that just opens itself up for, again, SLU University, or St. Louis University, my apologies, to be able to continue pushing in these sideways the way that they have with Cozy and with Strompest, who are the members that we anticipated being the big members of this team for this game.
And Bay-State pushing their way in, taking a couple resources for themselves, taking away the red buff. St. Louis comes around and goes, they were just here. Red buff has been stolen. And Matty setting his sights in the mid lane. Same can be said for Teesum as he hex tech flashes over the wall. Nobody to catch out just yet. A Sage just have to be cautious to not step too far forward.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of lethality actually done for Sophist.
Yeah.
An additional crit cloak as well. It's a little bit of a different build here for the Lucian than what I'm accustomed to seeing, but not going to be anything. Seranok wanted to push on the bottom side, wanted to try to respond because no one was in top lane at all. But again, the disbursement of SLU to every single side lane means that they can't quite get the full push. The bottom tower is not going to fall to the Vex, and top lane is going to get caught before it ends up coming through. We'll see if Cozy can actually make the collapse into Sophist happen, because you can see the hook shots ready to come in, but spotted out by that wonderful blue ward coming through. I actually need to see who was that. That was actually Bejjj's blue ward. Props to Bejjj finding him on that one, because that was very, very threatening for Sophist. Feels like they could have absolutely assassinated him with just a little bit of CC landing, but it's caught out ahead of time, so it's not going to be anything too crazy. And now actually stepping towards the Baron pit, being able to set up around this topside river is all of Bay-State. We're going to come back to mid lane, catch this wave before the tower collapses. Might actually be looking for a fight. They're looking to try to make this.
Here we go. Big cluster. They get a huge spear into the back line. They are decimating HP bars. Volibear ults in place. Gets dropped by Sage as well. A double kill for the Lucian. Make it a trip. Strompest has been routed. TC is trying to back inside of the opposing jungle. They're looking to see if they can catch out another member, trying to force them off. It is just Strompest on the Ahri and the Nautilus from Teesum, but this is Baron being started by Bay-State.
Get baited into the team fight under their own mid tower, and I don't think there's a contest coming through. It's just going to be Baron to Bay-State. I want to see a couple of things here, because this was posturing. They set up around the Baron buff, ready for it. All of it, you can see all of SLU is actually here, ready to go. This delivery, Seranok starts this fight off. 4 members flee, 2 members die instant, nearly, inside of a fight like this. And look at where the Ahri is. I love that DMK, rather than going for damage into a cluster of members, doesn't allow for Strompest to put damage into all of his team. Instead, Ult uses the paranoia to push Strompest out of the fight, keeps him baited away from the rest of the team, and it means that the rest of his team can get business done, as now a 4K gold swap. Insane for Bay-State.
Sophist KDA.
59 KDA this event, yeah.
He's only died once, by the way, inside of playoffs. So, like, that's actually a pretty insane stat, especially when going against competition like SLU. Hasn't died yet inside this game, didn't die in the previous game either. So right now, Sage having a fantastic game, having a fantastic series, having a fantastic event. But SLU, that was such a gut punch for them to just have that huge fear, have those team fight mechanics pop off, as you were saying. Now we have dragons spawning in under a minute, and Baron on Bay-State, they've got it for another 2 minutes to crack open some of these towers.
You think about, again, the identity for Bay-State in previous iterations to play around their top side, and when they swapped to bottom side, they had to find an ADC they were comfortable with. You can see him here popping on.
He gets dropped, he's getting popped, but the Coley not able to catch him, gets him on the edge of it. He is able to find it, and he's going in deep. Doxa trying to kite away, but it's so much damage. The Everfrost, Seranok secures the back line, and everybody except for Cozy has been routed.
And they're putting a bunch of faith into this ADC being able to help carry them, and right there expressing it very quickly, basically solo killing Teesum underneath his own tower, and finally we're getting the collapse from this big dive composition that Bay-State has set up 2 games in a row. Now look at this, I think it's an ult shot that tags him, and the collector is what ends up getting him in the grand. Oh, it might have actually been a tick from the Nami, but then the double dive, again, right onto Doxa. Strompest is not able to get out either. Look how much damage he took from Seranok, who's just been scaling until this portion of the game. Bay-State played so slow. I was anticipating them to go a lot more aggressive, but they understood the boundaries of what their champions could do. They found the right moment to strike, and they've put themselves in an insanely good position. They're now leading 3,500 gold, lead 3 dragons in this game, and they've got an absurdly strong Lucian to use in this mid game. How were St. Louis going to be able to compete against them in 4.5 minutes with a Lucian this strong, with a Vex this strong, and when they've got this much dive potential into their backline?
First things first, it looks like catch out Swordblue. They get an excellent pick onto the Nami, and then they make their quick retreat. It is such an easy steal for SLU to pick up. That's a huge member drop, and now they get the charm follow-up onto Bejjj. They continue to layer up some of the CC. Not going to finish it off Sage on the side. 6-0-3 on this Lucian. This Camille is just splitting. Has found 3 structures solo to themselves. This Cozy just being a menace.
Now, actually, you see, because of the numbers advantage they generated on top side, DMK was pushing in mid, attempting to use a little bit of pushing power to drive them away. But the Baron buff is now gone. There is nothing else for them to be able to take. It means that now Bay State is not able to push nearly as much as they wanted to, or nearly as much as they were able to with the last remnants of that Baron buff being able to take any sort of advantage. But once again, they find themselves in an advantageous gold position as opposed to, like, similar to what they had last game, about 2,500, 3,000 gold somewhere in that area. They've got a bunch of dive. It's looking very similar to what we saw last game, where once again, the soul is going to be on the table. And in 3.5 minutes time, SLU is going to have to come up with some kind of response. And so far, I think the biggest difference is that rather than trying to teamfight with the Vladimir, Cozy's been a side lane pretty much entirely for this game, just collecting as much in terms of turret pushing, being able to side lane as much as he can, but it just hasn't made that big of an impact. When fights exist, fights are there for both sides, right? Like, Bejjj is there in the 5-on-5. Cozy usually is there in the 5-on-5 anyway. So while the side lane has led to a Camille being very powerful, he has to find a way to use it properly. Get an ultimate onto Sophist to make sure this Lucian isn't just running amok inside the teamfights. Or better yet, use it on Seranok to prevent him from being able to capitalize on that big ultimate, being able to flow through the entire team and drop a massive W fear into multiple members, which has happened twice now for the side of Bay State. That's what you have to look to do if you're Cozy. Be this disruptor for the team, given how much gold you've been able to pull.
I bet you Cozy's a little bit sad too. He's got the hole breaker and he's like, nobody's coming to contest me on these waves, right? He's been just grabbing towers, but there's been no contention. But I think Bay State's been fine for it. They've shifted around 4K for themselves to give them, like you were talking about, that 2K growing into an almost 3K advantage now. And they are at Soul Point on Dragon. 2 minutes until Dragon spawns. A minute until Baron. Next neutral objective fight can be huge for who's going to be decided to come out on top.
I'm so curious what SLU's got in the tank, because this is a team that, you know, when we walked into the season, they were contesting some of the top teams. Back at Hugh, or Harrisburg University's esports festival, they were number 2. They had only lost to UST in the finals in a 2-1. It was an incredibly close series between these two. And over the last couple of months, our expectations haven't dropped. You noticed that our desk even talked about how talented a bunch of these players are. We need to see the clutch factor, right? We need to see this team live up to some of these expectations.
Oh, trying to catch out Bejjj, going in deep. They get the tower secured, but look at this. Bay State is punishing them equally on the other side of the map.
TP's available for Seranok to be able to join a fight, but DMK's got to get there now. He can use the ultimate from a distance, but they need vision. As it's the other side of the map where, like, you traded inner tower for inner tower, you lose the inhibitor tower, and now if only Strompest responds, DMK could ult onto him and just kill him off. And it's a question of, like, is it worth the dragon setup that's going to come through from SLU around this bottom side if you were to get that? It appears as though Bay State doesn't believe that they want to keep pushing, especially with reinforcements on the way. So instead, they just back off. They just take the trade of inner tower for inner tower, say that's perfectly fine, and now we're going to be able to push out to our bottom side. We have 1 minute to get territory still here. Cozy's so far up, though.
He's so far up, and he is drowning inside this bubble. The Hextech ultimatum has been thrown out, but the hook shot's not off cooldown. A major member dropped, and a godlike Sage is out here.
Oh, he's so far pushed up. Why are you this far pushed up? You can't be there. The opposite side of the map, the same thing was happening. You saw members from your team backing to respond to the split push of Seranok. That has to be read by SLU. They have to say, hey, you got to get out of there, because now, 40 seconds from now, 30 seconds from now, my apologies, the next Dragon's going to be up. If they don't just go for Baron, they're going to take the 4v5 and say, okay, you have to play against us now with no top laner, with no teleport, and you will either, like, fight us in the pit and we're going to beat you with our gold, or we're going to take the Baron for free.
All right, Curtain Call comes in. Nice charm
really
connects
big.
onto Dragonminkim. Dragonminkim did get dropped down fairly low. 4th shot from the Curtain Call comes in. Bejjj is forced out of this. Does get a nice pop onto him. A little bit of healing. Just enough to force Bay State off the Baron. Beautifully done by SLU.
heroics from a couple of players, biggest ones, again, Doxa and Teesum, both of them able to make a massive influence in this Baron fight. I really thought Base State was just the second that they had an inkling of where SLU was, we're going to pull the trigger on a couple of their global ultimates, but save all of it so that they can redeploy into this bottom side and compete for this dragon that I thought the setup was for anyway, and now they have to compete with SLU. SLU are the ones first into the river. Bejjj is going forward.
Bejjj is marching forward here. The tsunami comes in and divides the team comp beautifully from the side of SLU. They're looking for their marks, and Seranok goes in, but Strompest goes gold. That's just caught out of position by Dragonminkim. They're all just trying to cover for each other. SLU forced away from the Dragon Pit, as now Base State has gained control. Matty is over the wall and will not be able to contest this Dragon Soul, going over to Base State.
And just like that, Base State find a couple of ways. They split the fight to start with. Seranok makes sure that the damage can never really access the other side of the fight, and the damage is dealt to Matty, so that there's no way for him to actually get back to the Baron. But they're going to beeline immediately for this Baron as well, because resources were burnt on both sides of this fight. The biggest thing, Strompest ultimate and the Hextech ultimatum, both available here. That gives a couple of options to be able to single out immediate one single member of this team, potentially to drop them, with only really Aatrox ultimate. The World Ender is ready and raring to go for Bejjj, but they're going to force a move from SLU. They got to do something right now.
Camille's caught out of position here. They force Matty into the pit. Matty is in the pit. He is the target that they're looking to jump upon. They're trying to get rid of the smite, but he's staying alive for so long. The Baron is down to 15k. One member is already dropped from Base State. It has not been dropped yet. Dragonminkim trying to get another kill, but he finds himself falling. SLU come out huge around the Baron pit.
And they're going to try to close the game right here and right now in the top lane. It's Base State that, like, they overextend on the map. They get themselves the soul point. They have the Mountain Drake. They say, okay, SLU, you make the aggressive move. They don't focus down Matty. They don't focus down the Baron. They split in 5 different directions for that fight. I don't get it. They had an ability to focus in one direction and do something, but instead they try to get 3 things done at once, and it does nothing. And instead, SLU are going to be resilient. SLU are going to outlast, and SLU will take us to game number 3.
What a sudden end to the game. One mistake is all it takes from either of these teams to come out ahead. And this time it's SLU that lands the knockout punch on an off-balance Base State. They slay the immortal Sophist Sage. And all of a sudden, 1 death is all it took, man.
Again, it's Base State leaving openings in the fact that you have members of experience pretty much across the board here from SLU. I talked about literally minutes before this, wanting to see the clutch factor, wanting to see these members be able to be resilient and find their opening in a game like this. And while it was looking dire for them, it was looking horrible for them. If that Baron goes over and the fight doesn't go incredibly in their favor to where they can finish the game, Base State almost certainly waltz this one in for an easy 2-0. But instead, SLU find their moment, they find their attack angle, they're able to punish the mass overstepping from the side of Base State and get their win, get themselves a game number 3 and another chance to make it to top 8.
Bro, this is so very exciting. I am so ready for this. But we got some gents over in the wings ready to get everything broken down, get everything ready for a game number 3. But we're going to send it over to a short break so our desk can get prepared, because we got a roller coaster ride ahead of us. So we're going to be right back.